Shyam, founder of GoFloaters. Welcome again on another series, another part of the series of podcasts that we're doing with thought leaders from the remote work space. And today I'm joined by JC, who's the co-founder of Nomad Cowork. This is a very interesting story and interesting thesis to what JC does today with remote workers and with entrepreneurship in general. So I'm kind of quite excited about uh, knowing his journey and what we could learn from that. He's also been helping a lot of founders and remote workers figure out the right balance to lead a successful life. So I think a lot of those interesting tidbits of knowledge we can uncover in this podcast. So JC, welcome. Thank you for joining and thank you for being a part of this series of podcasts.
Thank you for having me, Shyam. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So JC, why don't we start off with a quick intro about yourself? If you could briefly talk about how you got to where you got, and then we'll start into the set of questions to understand deeper into what you do and what encourages you, motivates you to do what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, I am from Panama, and I worked in Panama for almost 10 years, and that was where I started my professional career. I started off as a call center agent, taking 100 calls a day and taking care of the customers in the best way I could. And it was in the call center industry where I grew. I became a quality analyst. I was in the workforce management. I was a supervisor of my first team or by the age of 19. And from there, I became the contact center manager when I was 23. So it was very, very early since I started managing teams.
Mhm.
And that is something that I enjoyed a lot because the thing that I enjoy the most is getting the best out of others. And then after the call center, I went into sales, very, very different
Right,
from customer service,
right.
but also through teams. And from Dell Computers, then I went to to regional CRM in Adidas, where my journey started in a completely different field, trying to understand customers from a different perspective.
Right.
But it was through Adidas that I went to start my journey in the Netherlands. This is the country where I live today. And I started to do the global version of my role.
Right.
Instead of the regional CRM manager, I was the global CRM manager. And from there, Heineken decided to hire me to take care of their Latin American e-commerce strategy.
Oh,
And from that point onwards, it's all the story where my personal development through ADHD and burnout starts. Because in Heineken, it was the first place where I did not have a team, and I had to figure things out on my own. And well, I don't know if you want me to continue through that, because from there, it's just Nomad Cowork starts.
yeah. So I think I want one fantastic exposure, right, from being from call center to customer facing to sales to e-commerce, right? So your journey has traversed, and again multiple countries and different cultures and all that, right? So now you kind of touched upon the first aspect that you wanted to kind of explore, right? You after your Heineken job at Heineken, you decided to jump into entrepreneurship while you were battling ADHD, while you were battling a lot of stress within, right? Why don't you kind of, I mean, usually a lot of people say that entrepreneurship is for people who have a lot of thick nerves, right? You have to be like, you have to battle out a lot of things. And here you were with burnout and ADHD, and then you probably did something that's quite contrarian to what others would have advised you to do, right? Others would have advised you to lay quiet, right? Take things simple, don't complicate your life, right? Relax for some time, take time out from, be away from all kinds of concerns and issues and all that. But then you took the opposite direction and became an entrepreneur. So why don't you talk about why you did what you did, and how it turned out to be a good idea or a good solution, right? Because so you're here, we're talking about it, so which means that it was obviously turned out to be good for you, right? So how was entrepreneurship the solution to your burnout and ADHD problems, or how did you overcome that, and how did you tackle that along with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think at that point, it was not as systematic as I'm going to explain it right
Right.
now, but it does have a subconscious decision making of why I did that. So it all starts because we all need a goal, and we all need a goal to strive for.
Right.
And we need to do something that we like and that we enjoy.
Right.
And I understood that in order to keep going forward in my life, I need to look after something meaningful. And creating a platform that would allow me help other people go to beautiful places and work from there, it was something that really really moved me and really kept me going. And in the process I started to realize that, okay, if I work on something that I really like and I match that with my skill set, I can do this sustainably.
Mhm.
I don't need to work right ahead 14 hours per day, 7 days a week, because it's completely unsustainable, even for somebody that doesn't have a burnout or doesn't have any other neurodivergent brains. But if you find something that is meaningful, something that you really like, you can start doing that 1 hour a day out of the 23, and then slowly but steady build yourself up.
Mhm.
I didn't start working on my cowork 8 hours per day. Now I can do that, and I can do that for longer periods of time because I built myself up from that.
Right.
But the most important thing is because there was a goal
Right.
and something that I really enjoy to do.
And so I'm going to ask you this question. It's more of a personal question because I mean I'm able to understand what you're saying. In the sense that when you do something that's to your liking, something that you're passionate about, right? Even if you spend fewer hours working on it, you're so focused on delivering the results. So you're focused on so much focus, right? You're hyper productive. Even if you work for a short number of hours, you are able to deliver more results because you're doing this because you like doing it, right? You're not doing it just
Yeah.
because it's part of your job or your JD at the company, right? But I get it. But what I'll tell you what happened to me when I jumped into entrepreneurship, I had the passion to do what I started to do. In fact, that was the reason why I even quit my high-paying job, long career at IT companies 18 years later, right? But what happened is like the moment you do something and you really like doing it, you lose track of time, right? You want to do it so perfectly well that you start to even if it's okay, right, you still are not happy with it because you love it so much that you're always trying to perfect the I'm just taking an example, right? If it's a design, then you're trying to perfect everything because you care for it, it's your passion, right? It's your dream project, so you don't want it to fail, right? So like you said, right, it's a very difficult line to draw to say. It's because the moment you start liking from like you start to love doing something, right? You also start to pour more time into it, right? You get absorbed by it or sucked by it. So how did you strike that balance?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question because if you like something, you don't know when to stop unless you have self awareness. And self awareness is something that you gain through mindfulness practices. I became a breathwork instructor in my journey to try to get out of the burnout, because one of the things that I had is that I was too much in my head and I was not inside of my body. And if you do not feel when you're reaching your limits, you are going to crush them and you're going to go right off the window because you are not responding to the signals of your body. So if I feel tired, I go for a walk, I take a nap. I don't need to grind it off.
Mhm.
Why? Because I don't go back to where I was before. Probably I wouldn't be saying this. I would have had a burnout. But I do have to pace myself. If I'm overly excited and it's not matching my levels of energy, I do need to be responsible enough to say, hey, this is enough for today. Can I delegate this? If I really, really like this, can I wait until tomorrow until I feel a little bit better?
Right.
Because it's not just about the business, it's also about the people who are around me, people who depend on me, either are people who work with me or my girlfriend or whoever. They all deserve a piece of attention and a well-being of me. So I need to make sure that I'm fit in all these different aspects of life. So self-awareness is a super big aspect towards it.
Right.
And perhaps I will not achieve as much as other entrepreneurs that are grinding 14 hours per day, but I don't care. I don't compare myself to them. I am what I
Right.
am, and that's what I have to do.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right the right balance, just like you said, and it's a very difficult state of mind to get, right? To kind of be that self-aware and then know when to stop and say, hey, I've done enough for the day or I've done enough for the week. Now it's time to kind of take a break, right? So it's a very difficult thing to arrive at. But again, I also when we last spoke, JC, right? One very profound statement that you made, and it kind of made me think after that, is that you said that you realize that entrepreneurship is probably the best personal development tool that could exist, right? So you said that,
Yeah.
right? So why don't you kind of elaborate on that thing as to how it helped you? Number one, obviously, you had ADHD plus burnout. You were able to overcome them, right? But how did it personally also develop your skills, not just entrepreneurial skills, but then as an individual, how did it help you develop as an individual?
Yeah, great question. So entrepreneurship is all about solving problems that have an objective.
Right,
And we can extrapolate that to our personal life as well. What problems do I have speaking? What problems do I have with my relationships with others? What problems do I have in growing my business? But we are not able to solve all the problems at the same time, nor we cannot solve complicated problems if we have not solved earlier ones.
right,
So if one is able to pick a problem with the right self-awareness, okay, I am strong enough or I have the knowledge in order to beat this problem, you will get experience. And that experience is going to make you grow. You're going to be able to build a great body. You're going to be able to build good relationships. You're going to be able to build a nice business. The same mindset that goes into entrepreneurship is to acquire the skills to solve a problem to make myself better can be applied to absolutely everything in our life.
right,
And that's why I think it's a great self-development tool. You're always pushing yourself. You're pushing yourself not because you want to crush it. Of course you want to crush it, but you're pushing yourself so you can grow a little bit more. And you don't put yourself a challenge that is too easy because then you get bored.
right,
So if you're always playing that edge, if you're always in the edge of, okay, what can I do a little bit better now? What problem can be a bit more complicated? You're going to grow as you grow your business, as you grow everything else in your life.
right. Awesome. I think it's another very interesting way to look at entrepreneurship. And again, it does kind of, how do I say, right? So for me, I'll probably pick up a personal story here, right? Uh, uh, for me, entrepreneurship, and again, before I got into entrepreneurship, I was in the, how to say, right, in the corporate world, right, where a lot of things get you can get work done, right, by just delegating stuff to other people, because you've got a HR department, you've got a finance department, you don't have to do everything, right? But the moment you become an entrepreneur, it kind of stretches your imagination or stretches your ability in multiple aspects of it. And you can't say I'm only good. So, for example, I was talking to my mentor. I said, "Hey, I'm not good at this, right? I'm going to hire somebody to do marketing for me, right?" But my advisor said, if you don't know what marketing is about, if you don't know uh, what's the language to use to talk to your customers, how are you going to tell a marketer to do this, right? You have to kind of get the flavor of it. You have to understand this, and then only you can kind of bring in somebody else to do it for you, right? So that way, like, uh, you have to solve the problem from multiple angles, right? So there is a code problem that I've solved, but then I need to market this, I need to sell this, I need to scale this, I need to build a technology behind it, right? So you're solving different aspects, you're building a team along the way, right? So it kind of helps you develop so many aspects of from a skill standpoint, right? It kind of gives so much of exposure that is hard to get when you're working on a particular job in a particular department, right? So that was my personal experience with when I first jumped. And the biggest thing, you know what? It crushes your ego, right? For me, that was a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
difficult phase to kind of overcome, because after, like, I think it's a case for you, right? You've been in a job, you've been in a respectable job, you've been a leader, right? But then you kind of go back to AB initio, right? Uh, right. So you have to prove your worth all over again, and ego is comes in the way when you come with a baggage of ego. It doesn't help, right? So I think that's a personal development that I could say, like, mean, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what I've done before. What I'm doing now is what is going to matter, right? So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now let's get into the Nomad Cowork, right? There again, I saw a lot of parallels with the journey of GoFloaters. So how did it all happen, right? And and before we go there, what is Nomad Cowork? What does it do, right? Uh, if you could explain, I mean, if you could give us a gist of that, and then tell us about the backstory of Nomad Cowork. How did it all happen?
Absolutely. So Nomad Cowork helps remote workers and digital nomads find a place to work and live when they're traveling. We are a network of co-working spaces, co-living spaces, apartments, workations that are set to be the future marketplace of digital nomads so they can find whatever they need space related, either if it's to work, either if it's to live, or for both. That's what we offer and that's what we do. So a little bit of the backstory.
And this is today.
Um,
This is today
yeah,
in the European Union, right? The geographically,
yeah. We are within the EU. Of course, we want to expand to other countries
right,
and regions, but we are, as mentioned before, focused in getting Spain and Portugal right on the line in terms of the spaces that we have in our SEO gains and so on.
right, right,
But eventually, but right now, we're specifically in Europe.
right. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the backstory, it's very interesting. My co-founder, his name is Saleh Rabbani. He also had a burnout himself, and he was like, "Okay, I am going to go to Bali. I'm going to open up a co-working space there because I think co-working spaces are a great idea in order to improve collaboration and also to be in a nice place." And he was tired of the 9 to 5 grind. Of course, it led him to the place that he was. So he was set to do that. At that point, we're not business partners; we're just very good friends. And COVID hit, and of course, when COVID it's there, it's not a very good idea to open up a co-working space anywhere. So he retracted from the idea, but he was really, really into the co-working space thing. And he told me, "Hey, John, I think I'm going to create a platform to host co-working spaces."
Right.
And I'm like, "All right, you don't know how to code, so I'll be very curious to know how to do that. How you do that?" And he locked himself for 1 month, and he coded the first version of what our platform was.
Right.
It was a mini version of what Airbnb could do. You could create business accounts, user accounts. You could make bookings on products. It worked, and I was extremely impressed because he learned to do that
Right.
in just 1 month. And of course, I asked him, okay, so what do you plan to do with this? What's your market? What's your business model? All these different things. And at that point, he didn't give that thought. So we let it go from there. And one day, playing basketball, we spoke about it one more time, and he said, "Hey, JC, you have a little bit more commercial and marketing background, and perhaps we can figure this out." And I thought, hey, the idea sounds great. I think helping people go to beautiful places, it's amazing. I'm a traveler myself, being backpacking for more than 10 years. So merging this with the professional aspect of it sounded amazing. And this was way before in the early 2000s. And that's how the platform started. We started with co-working spaces. And as we got into the market, we learned the different type of offers and needs and wants in the market. And that's how the platform came to be, whatever it is today.
Awesome. So again, quite coincidental that COVID uh, made you pivot the problem from. So previously it would have been solving one very geographically focused set of individuals, right, in Bali, right? But now it has a potential to become a global platform, right? So the impact it could have, right, has the constraints of the boundaries of the geographies have been removed by the new form of this idea, right? Now it's a global problem, and it's a global audience is the consumer for the solution that we have. So it's in a way, it's kind of made you think bigger than just one co-working space in one part of the world, right? So that I think I think many businesses have had that game-changing impact, right? COVID has had that. We ourselves have changed from a B2C offering to a B2B offering post-COVID, and that's kind of changed the way our value has changed, right? The value proposition has changed to our customers, and uh, kind of problem you're solving also has changed drastically because that COVID had kind of in a way made us to take that pivot. So now coming to Nomad Cowork again, little bit a few questions that I want to understand this better, right? So here we're talking about digital nomads, remote workers. So we're talking about individuals, probably solopreneurs or freelancers. What is the mix, right? Right? What is the mix like? Is it more freelancers? Is it more solopreneurs? What is the usual? What is your mix of clients that use Nomad Cowork?
Yeah, I would say around 70% would be remote workers, people who are able to work remotely, which their company allows them to do so,
Right.
and the rest will be digital nomads that, in my view, are entrepreneurs that are location independent. That's
Awesome.
just a term that we
Awesome.
can use.
Yeah.
But these are the two main profiles that we have.
Right. So
It's very different than yours because yours is mainly used by companies
correct.
directly. Mine is mainly used by the end users.
End users, yeah. So that's, I mean, that's the there's a bit of difference in how we have approached the problem, right? At the end of the day, we work remote, we help remote workers. Just that how we approach the problem and what is the mechanism we have taken to solve the problem is kind of different there, right? So what I very curious to understand, JC, is that in the last year and a half that you've been running, it's been a year and a half now for Nomad Cowork,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
So in the year and a half that you've been running Nomad Cowork, you might have come across so many different individuals, so many different people from different diverse backgrounds, right? Uh, what what are the challenges that you have been able to distill? Um, let's say in the first few months of taking Nomad Cowork to the market, into the market, you would have had so many feedback coming your way that would have helped you tweak the offering. Like you said, you started with co-working, but then now you're now doing co-living, you're now doing vacations, right? So you've also expanded on the verticals that you offer through Nomad Cowork. What I'm curious to understand, what are the challenges that and so this is another very interesting profound thought I got from the previous conversation that we had, right? So you said that digital nomads, remote workers, if somebody is traveling 2000 miles to come to one remote part of the world, right, taking 2 weeks off from their uh, what typically is their world, right? They are getting away from something, right? They are trying to do something away from
Yeah.
an environment that probably was constraining them or was challenging to them. So they're trying to get away from something, right? So I would love to know more. And in general, in your interactions with all your customers, what are some of the uh, interesting factoids that you've learned, or interesting challenges that you've learned in your customer interactions?
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to split the question in two. So the first part, like, why do they leave and why do they pursue it? So the majority of the digital nomads that I've met, the current system doesn't work for their personality and their way of thinking. Their mindset pursues freedom, and freedom in the way they manage their time, freedom in the way in what they do. And our current society doesn't allow that to flourish in a good way.
Mhm.
And of course, if you're surrounded by people that are focused in living life in a specific way, you're not going to feel comfortable there.
Right.
So you go and search for that freedom and search for that independence yourself. And that's why when they leave, they decide to go to the best places to do that. And these are the main islands that we know. We know Bali, we know Tenerife, we know Ibiza, we know the south of Portugal, we know Lisbon, etc., which are beautiful places which have become the hub of this type of people. The majority of them, by nature, are entrepreneurs because they are searching to solve the problem of freedom, and that's why they do it.
Right.
Um, and then the main challenges once they leave, they the first one is the same, but on two sides. One is loneliness. So of course, you leave your family, you leave your friends, you have nobody around you, and you're moving every 2 months, every 3 months to a new place. So you don't have relationships in a sustained manner.
Right.
So they tend to feel lonely, and that's probably their number one problem.
Mhm.
Not having that stable community around you, it's something that hurts them a lot, because as we are social creatures, we are supposed to be with people.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we don't like the idea, or some of them don't like the idea, I love it myself. That is something that our bodies and our minds need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second one is the feeling of groundedness. As human beings, we like to belong. We need, again, human nature. It's not something that I'm saying, it's just human nature.
Right.
And as you move for several places, that feeling of ungroundedness becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until you cannot sustain it. And then you need to stay in a place for a little while, because our body craves routine, our mind craves predictableness to a certain extent. Of course, it's a spectrum. Some people need a lot of predictability, some people need less, but we need certain dose regardless.
Right.
So this will
Right.
be the main issues that they have. In terms of the issues regarding of what Nomad Cowork solves, we started with co-working spaces because we were trying to get places where they can work in beautiful areas. But their number one issue is, where am I going to live? And the second one is, who am I going to hang out with?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the reason why I started to do co-livings and workations, because the co-livings are the place where they can live, and they can work, and they can meet people. And I added workations because it makes it easier for them to get already in an embedded community with the kinds of people that they like. So this would be, I would say, in these three categories are challenges on before they leave, while they leave, and how Nomad Work can solve them.
Awesome. Awesome. I think that's a very, very insightful learning, right? In the sense that at the end of the day, while they long, so it's a little bit of a, what is it, right? A two-part problem, right? While you want to have the freedom on it, while you want to disconnect yourself from the daily routines of what your society expects, at the same time, you also want to have a belonging to another set of people who are similar to you. I mean, who have a similar thinking to yours, right? So it's not like these are completely people who want to be uh, who want to detach themselves from every other human connection, right? So, like sometimes they perceive that way, right? That I mean, digital nomads are sometimes stereotyped as people who don't fit into the framework of a society, right? But it's just that their society is a little different from what uh, most of us kind of think, right, is the norm of life. So it's just that they need a different type of people to move around with than what most of us think that to be. So it's a very that's a dichotomy that makes it very, very exciting and interesting. And you also talked about after they leave, the place to work is probably the smaller part of the challenge, right? The bigger part of the challenge is where am I going to live and who am I going to spend time with, right? What kind of interaction, what kind of uh, 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 what is it, learning am I going to get by working and interacting with people? That so that they're looking for that as well. So quite interesting. So when did you start? When did you introduce co-living and vocation into the mix of these service offerings from Nomad Cowork?
Well, our workation started back in October, our first initiative of workation, and that for us is one of our most important products, because we are able to use all the assets that we have collected in Nomad Cowork, from our audience, our co-working spaces, our living spaces, and try to offer a complete solution for all our problems, for all their problems.
Right, right. Awesome.
And even so, not only for digital nomads, also for people who work for companies that would like to have a digital nomad like experience without actually needing to sell their house and quit their job and so on. They can still do that with our workations.
Right, right. In fact, there was a brief period where this actually became a trend, where and we also thought about getting into vocations. Is that uh, colleagues from a particular company would actually go on a vacation together, right? So they're not just stepping away from the grind of the urban life that they were having, but at the same time they were all part of a team inside a company, so they were all be able to like not just have the freedom but also come together and collaborate, right? Get to know each other really
That's
better.
all.
So it's kind of, but I don't I hear less of it in India, at least for now. But I think that was something that a lot of people started to do when things start to ease up with respect to COVID-related constraints, right? So now coming to again coming back to the profile of people that use Nomad Cowork, right? So I want to touch upon this before I go to the last part of my sort of questions that I had for you, right? Is that uh, can you kind of take a persona or can you describe a typical user of Nomad Cowork, right? You can take a digital nomad, or you can take that profile or persona, or you can take a entrepreneur, remote worker kind of a persona, right? What uh, so you can probably go ahead with describing. So who are these people, right? What do they do, right? Are they more creative? Are they uh, techies? Are they like you said, entrepreneurs, like you said? What are the kind of people? What kind of patterns do you observe in the typical users from who use Nomad? Do you see any patterns at all?
Yeah. Of course. First, I'm gonna do it in both. So personal characteristics and then professional characteristics. So from a personal one, these people are super free spirited, and I love that because you are able to have very insightful conversations of diverse, different kinds of topics. They are very inclusive. You are able to um, enjoy different types of settings with them. You can either be surfing or hiking or working in a cool project ad hoc with them. So it's they're very diverse in their ways of thinking and doing things.
Mhm.
So on a personal standpoint, that is one characteristic. From a professional one, since their nature is to be entrepreneur-like, they will tick all those boxes. So they're very proactive. They are very fast decision makers. Not only for professional, but if they have to go somewhere, they will think quickly where they want to go. They will plan a lot because they will plan a lot, but not long term. They'll plan a lot short term.
Right.
So they know their next few steps. Maybe not what's going to happen in 3 months, but they would know what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, and specifically on their work. They're very good on time management. The majority of them,
Right.
they're highly adaptable. They're changing from country to country, culture to culture. They like to learn a lot. So, and this goes by from a personal perspective, but also the majority of them are techies, as you well mentioned. So they have to keep up with technology and new trends and so on. Um, and for some of them, they can be very good communicators too. Perhaps not all from a verbal form, but since in LinkedIn, for example, you have to write properly
Right.
in order to get your message through to your audience, so they can communicate pretty well.
Right.
Perhaps not in every single way of communication, but they are able to do it good. And they're very reliable people
Mhm.
because since they have a business, so they tend to be very responsible towards it, and that extrapolate to other areas of life.
Right.
And last but not least, they're very goal oriented people, and these are fabulous traits to have people around you like this.
So exactly, right. So the reason I asked you to kind of describe these people is that again, like I said, right, there's a lot of stereotypes created when companies look at hiring some of this talent, right, or engaging some of this talent. There are some perceived notions that you kind of squashed most of that, right? So that how do we communicate? How they deliver stuff on time if they're juggling multiple things, they're traveling, they're doing something. So it's for a typical manager, it's a little difficult to wrap their head around such a talent in their team and get them to be a part of this team without any apprehensions on how they're working, right? So as long as they're delivering goods, right? So there's a lot of so I want to kind of take that view, right? So let me take this one by one, and we can kind of say how it's true, not true, right? In a way, you've already answered some bits of it when you talked about their professional traits. So you should believe, right? Uh, and the other trend, I'm sure you're kind of also hopefully seeing this in your part of the world, is that a lot of not just the junior roles, right, but a lot of senior roles also, you have a fractional CMO, right? You have a fractional CTO, right? You have a fractional VP of sales or a VP of finance, right? So there's a lot of finance was probably the first role to become fractional, right? You didn't need a head of finance. Not all startups need a head of finance to begin with, but as things get complicated, you obviously need somebody full time. So it started off with CFO, fractional CFO, but then now you have fractional CMOs, fractional CTOs, right? A lot of the senior roles now people are uh, doing fractional roles, right? So the future of talent itself is kind of changing, right? You don't have to be employed somewhere, or you don't have to be just working on one project at a time, right? You could be shuffling multiple projects at the same time, even at senior levels, right? I could have done it easily as a graphic designer. I could do 3 4 projects at the same time, but now you're at a realm where even senior roles are being done in that sense, right? So again, coming back to my question, you talked about they're extremely good at planning. They're extremely good at time management, right? They're extremely professional about their way of their work, right? They're delivering. They know. I mean, they take ownership of delivering whatever is their deliverables, right? So what kind of apprehensions you have come across, right, when it comes to managers or people who typically work with these uh, uh, remote workers, digital nomads, and how are they true or how are they not true, right? Uh, do you find the kind of people who come to Nomad Cowork, do you find them to be uh, the cream of talent, right? Are they best at what they do, uh, or are they, like, how to say it, average performers at a company? What kind of good? So good.
Like what so you mentioned, right? If tensions from other managers towards people that are working remotely, is that
Right,
correct?
right, correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I think just the fact that they cannot trust people that are not around them, that they cannot look around and see what's happening in their screens, creates certain sense of insecurity. And I think the reason why that is because they are tend to measure outputs and not the outcome of the work.
right,
So if you tell somebody, I need you to make X amount of revenue, I need you to shorten the delivery time for X amount of time, that is a very measurable thing. And as a manager that is only looking at what time the person is coming, or how many emails a person is sending, or how many Jira tickets is the person closing, or how many presentations that person is sending, whatever corporate BS the manager is looking at, is of course going to be apprehensive because he's not measuring the right thing, and it's not because he's not measuring, he's not making anybody accountable of it.
right.
So a good leader and a good manager will be able to, one, hire an autonomous person with the characteristics that I described, and second, be able to provide them, hey, this is what I need, these are your tools, these are your resources, can you do that? If the person says, yes, I can do that in 2 weeks, okay, I will see you in our one-on-one in 5 days, and you let me know how it goes. And if you allow that space for creativity, you allow that space for freedom to work in the time that they feel best, you will get the results because you
Right.
hired the best. If you hired the best, you tell them what you want and they will do it. And of course, as a manager, you must have some notion of more or less where do they go, right? But that's for me one of the reasons why they don't measure the right things, and that's why they're not able to trust. And in my opinion, sometimes they don't even know what they want.
Yeah, I think that's. I think you've kind of touched the raw nerve, right? Is that a lot of times it's the bad planning or bad execution on the manager's part to kind of lay down the expectations on what is to be delivered, right? Right, the outcome that they want, right? So a lot of managers kind of, you first do it, come back to me, then I'll tell you what to do next, because they themselves have not documented it or put it down. They themselves are not clear on what where this is heading towards, right? So they're also uh, feeling and driving by the wire, right? By looking at what's coming out, they're kind of constantly recalibrating the expectations on what they are, what they want as an outcome, and that's the problem. That cannot work if you don't have planning at your end. It's quite difficult for you to deliver proper outcomes from a remote worker.
Yep.
And from the last question here, JC, we're already a little over our scheduled time. So for in fact, two questions. One is that what are the best practices for both remote workers and for companies that engage remote workers, right? What are the top three takeaways that you've had in running 1.5 years of Nomad Cowork, right? What would you kind of recommend both the remote worker and the company to kind of put in place to have a very productive outcome from the relationship that they would have, right? That's number one. And number two, I would love to you to paint a picture of what do you see, where do you see this going, right? So where do you see remote work going? Where do you see digital nomads and how that trend shaping up, at least in your part of the world? What are the early indicators of uh, different trends that you are kind of seeing that will become huge or become big in the next few years, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll go with the first question on the what does the company should do and the remote worker should do. They should both have the same understanding of what the goal is. First of the company, and then of the specific role that the person is being
Right,
hired, and how
right,
does that goal connect to the goal of the company. If this thing is not clear, it's all down that is down from hill from there.
right,
Because if people are working for two different things, it's not going to work.
right,
Especially if the remote worker or the digital nomad is being hired for a CMO role, and the person is not understanding the goal, they should not take that job because it's going to hinder their career and their own time. Even though they're
right,
going to get paid or not, maybe it's a big trouble. So be worried about these wishy-washy goals and outcomes. Then the other one, I think, open communication and trust. And in communication, we can go very deep and talk about time zones and these kind of things. I don't want to go there.
right,
But when I say open communication, is what are the clear expectations and acceptance criteria that you would expect from me in order to get that working? And the third one that I would say is proper documentation. If it's a process, if it's a project that has been done before, the company needs to have documentation on how it's being done. So then it's easier for onboarding. Because if you are starting again to explain everything, you're going to lose time and it's not going to be very effective. And for the remote worker that is doing the job, make sure you're documenting every single part of your journey so you are giving that to that company and they'll be highly appreciated.
right.
And overall, every company possible should be remote first. Of course, people go to the office, but it goes remote first. And that is the big umbrella that encompasses these big three things.
So I think you brought out some very again we observe similar challenges that companies have. The ones that are trying to be remote first, but the ones that are struggling with it fail on one or more of the 3 points that you mentioned, right? So either the goals are not aligned or not clearly defined. The expectations are not aligned and clearly defined. The goal of the role and goal of the company not getting aligned properly. That's another problem. Documentation uh, of the process of references that the remote worker can have of past work. So documentation becomes a big challenge, and generally uh, the understanding on how this is going to work, right? How we will communicate, right? What will be the cadence, right? Uh, what will we do weekly? We'll do this catch up call, or this is how these are the times at which we'll have an overlap where we can do synchronous collaboration, right? These are time zones where we'll do asynchronous collaboration. So setting those expectations correct again, those are not made correctly, and then friction is created unnecessarily because you don't explain them or understand them upfront, right? So these are also challenges that we observe with companies that do just enable remote work here in India, right? So now coming to the second part of my question, right, is what about the trend that you are seeing, right? You and okay, one more point I want to kind of make made you made a very interesting statement now saying that every company should aspire to be remote first, whether they engage uh, digital nomads or anything, right? Because I think I was having a conversation even with another person, Jeff, a few weeks back, right? So remote work, by being remote first, like you said, it is not going to introduce new activities to or new things that a company has to do, right? It is only emphasizing on things that they should have already done correctly
Yeah,
before,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So it's not like it's your remote first means that you get like 20 more things that you have to do, right? If
it
these are the same
simplifies
20 things
things.
that you should, yeah, these are, you should have been good at these 20 things anyways, whether you're remote first or not, right? You should have done this anyways, right? Just that the office is helping you mask the bad management practices or bad documentation practices or bad process implementation process practices. You're able to fix them along the way, right? Because the person is right in front of you, can go there and, hey, for this, do it this way, right? Just do it this way, right? I'm telling you, right? It's not documented, but just do it because I've been there, I've done that, right? So you get away with not having these processes and documents and expectations in play. But in remote first, you can't get away with it. So it's kind of only strengthening your practices better than actually including new problems to the equation, right? So that way, like what he said makes sense, right? So every company should aspire to be remote first, right? Whether they are truly remote, every role in the company is remote or not, right? They have to be aspired to be that, right? It's like the golden uh, standard that they should try to aspire for, right? So now coming to the last question, JC, trends and into your crystal ball. When you look into the crystal ball, 3 to 5 years from now, how do you see this changing, right? Do you uh, uh, how is this going to become mainstream, or is it going to be more for certain roles in the company, certain types of activities, types of jobs, you would find more of them? So uh, what does your crystal ball say?
Yeah, I think that we're still going to have these three different types of companies. There are companies that, by their nature, manufacturing, if you're building rockets or something like that, I think you should be very close to the rocket when you're building it. Building that rocket remotely might be an issue. If you are in a hair salon, probably you will be there. So there are certain companies that will still be in that. As the same, there will be hybrid companies in which certain roles will have the capability of being fully remote, and even in some stages, these companies, when there are big issues that they need to come together, they will come together in person in order to face it.
Right.
And we will have as well fully remote companies, mainly technological driven companies that will be fully remote. So we have Glacian, we have Hotjars, we have Dropboxes, we have Spotify. We have many of other companies that are fully remote at the moment. So
Mhm.
into the future, I would see the remote work going more, but for two reasons. One, it's more efficient. If you want to be a better company, you need better processes, you need better communication, you need better goals. So you will become remote first. Either you want to call it remote first or not because it's cringy the term for you, that's fine. But you need to improve the processes and you will become remote first. And
And
by doing,
one more thing I want to add is that you also want the best talent, and the
and you
best
want the best
talent.
talent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Please.
and yeah, and because of the people who want the best talent, there are going to be more people aspiring to have the skills and traits of somebody that can be a higher talented person with all the autonomy characteristics that I gave before. So we will have these sort of professionals, and we will have more of these companies. But there's also a space for physical companies and hybrid companies. So as an example that I like to give a lot, interns, I don't think they should be remote working. I think they should come to
Mhm.
the office and learn how to negotiate, how to talk to people, how to
Right.
present, and you need certain people in offices for that. Is it going to be for everybody and all the time? No, but there's a space for everything and everyone. And I think it's
Right.
up to the company and up to the individuals in that company to decide, okay, what is the best for this company at this stage, and
Right.
what can we do to get better? And as you get better, you will become more remote first, and your flexibility to work from everywhere will increase. I do think that the goal should be how can we improve our processes so we can improve our communication, and then everything else will trickle from there, and we'll have more freedom and better companies.
Well said. I think that kind of brings up all that we discussed into that last point that you summarized, right? In the sense as to uh, how this is going to. I mean, drawing the line, right? It's not like a panacea for every company for every role, right? So the even within the company, certain roles, it is better to be in person, right? Even if you're remote first, if you're onboarding a new person, a fresher, as an intern or as a junior developer, junior resource, then it's better for them to do this in person, right? So this, it's that choice of the environment and fitting the environment, the place of work to the work and to the people who are working, right? So that mixing that efficiently, mixing that uh, without confusion is where what companies will get right over a period of time. And also companies, as they an early stage startup to a growth stage startup to, let's say, an established company, so even across their growth journeys they might actually have to have a different mix of things, right? For different departments, for different uh, teams within their companies. So they have to make a different mix, and kind of doing this and kind of tweaking this along the way, right? Being very agile about it and tweaking this along the way to figure out what works for you is kind of what companies will get better at over a period of time, right? And uh, so I think this is a great conversation, JC, that I was able to have because we started out with your personal struggles, right? Your what you were seeking as problems to your own personal struggles to now looking at the crystal ball of remote work, right? We've covered a lot in the last 45 minutes, and again, even though Nomad Cowork and GoFloaters is miles, thousands of miles apart, right? Uh, we kind of understand the ground realities. The ground realities are kind of very similar, right? The challenges that remote workers have, the challenges that apprehension the companies have, uh, kind of are similar, right? So I think it's kind of this is a universal being remote first. I think it's the one thing. Good thing is like it can be a universal knowledge bank, right? So it's not obviously it has to be flavored to each country and all that, but I think the arching problems are the same, right? So it is great to do that along with you, JC, and amazing to hear your journey and from like I said, right? So I'm able to relate to your journey quite a bit because we went through a similar journey as well, right? So thank you for your time. Thank you for all the words of wisdom, and I wish you the best. I wish you and your co-founder the best in taking Nomad Co-work. Uh, Great service, right? Need of the hour kind of service, and I wish that you are able to expand geographically so that you're able to impact more remote workers from across the world. Uh, so looking forward to you going branching out of the European Union into other parts of the world. So all the best for that.
Thank you so much, Ian. I highly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for your time and have a nice evening ahead and look forward to talking to you yet again in another episode or maybe casually as well.
Let's discuss soon, Ian. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.